C is a question stem. Okay, so that's the question part of the question. Above that, you see the argument. And of course, over here on the right side, you see your 5 answer choices. Normally, where I start when I'm processing the questions is with the, I start with the question stem, because I want to know what type of question it is. Then I go back and I analyze and I read up here, and then only after I've done that will I go to the 5 answer choices and start making decisions. So let me quit fooling around with the stem here. Let me just show you the key word in the question. So obviously the key word in the question is the word, hi there. There we go. So it's the assumption in the spokesman's argument. Okay. And let me give you one more clue here. This word therefore should indicate that that's the main idea or the conclusion of the argument. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you guys about 1.5 minutes to try to work through the question, and just go ahead and pick the best answer. I'll put a poll up at the end. All right, so I got 59% for choice B, 14% for D, 14% for E, 9% for C, and 5% for A. Okay. All right, well, let me just hold off on what the correct answer is for just a moment. Let me work through the question with you guys a little bit. So let's talk about what the plan is about. So the plan is for the government to recoup the cost of student loans. Okay. So we want to recover the loan money. Okay. And there's a fact given at the beginning. It says the least disruptive way to recoup the cost of student loans is to increase the interest rate. Okay, so that would be kind of like method number 1, would be take the interest rate and just increase it. Okay, then we have a but here. In the state of Betulia, interest rates are as low as they've been in decades, and legislatures have promised to keep them that way. Okay, so there's a promise here, which means that essentially they can't do this because they've made a promise. So what the author gives us is option number 2. So he says, therefore, the least disruptive way, meaning the way that does not break a promise, would be to shorten the life of the loan. All right. So keep the interest rate the same, but just make the loan have a shorter period. So that would be the least disruptive way, okay? And that's the one that he advocates. So what's going on here? Well, he says that this is going to be the least disruptive. The problem is, though, we don't know if they've made any promises about this. So like with the interest rate, we know they can't do it because they have a promise, right? But with changing the life of the loan, he says that it's the least disruptive way, but he never says whether they've made a promise about that or not. Let's talk about the answers now. A says that they are against student loan collections. Well, that's certainly not true. That's the whole goal of the plan. The goal of the plan is to recover the money from the student loans. B was the most popular answer in the class. The rate of student loan repayment would not increase in the state of Betulia if interest rate payments were increased in proportion to loan duration. Well, this is not the plan. The plan is to shorten the life of the loans. So B is actually irrelevant. It's not the plan. C says that they are eager to collect student loans. And that's the goal of the plan. That's true. However, C doesn't tell us whether this particular method to achieve that goal is disruptive or not disruptive. So C is not the answer. It's just telling us that this is the thing that they want to do. This is the problem they want to D is similar. So I know the word traumatic is not really the same as the word disruptive, but I'm just going to ignore that for now. Let's just pretend like those are the same anyway. D kind of has the same problem as C, which is this is sort of like the goal of the plan. The goal would be to get the money in a way that's not disruptive or in a way that's not traumatic. It doesn't specifically address the plan of shortening the life of the loans. So D is out. What's left? Choice E. Legislatures in the state of Etruria have not promised to keep student loan repayment requirements stable. So let's talk about what happens if this is true. So if E is true, it means they've not made any promise about the life of the loan, which means that they could do this, it would not be disruptive, and it would recover the student loan plans. Basically, if E is true, it would strengthen the argument. Okay, now let's go the other way. What if E was false? There we go. So what if they had made a promise to keep the requirement stable? Well, if they had made a promise, that means they can't do this without being disruptive. And if it's disruptive, then that weakens the argument. And so E is the thing that we need to know. Right? We need to know if they've made this promise or if they've not made this promise. Okay? And choice E is the best answer. That is an assumption. Okay, so why'd you guys like B so much? The majority of the class chose B. Okay, well, I'll think about it, maybe. Or if you have an explanation, it says in proportion. Okay. Well, then let me state a little kind of theory thing here about GMAT. So whenever a question's about a plan, okay, a plan always has two parts. Part one is the action. What is the thing that you want to do? Number two is the goal. What are you trying to achieve? So in order to be relevant, you have to be talking about the actual action they're talking about and the actual goal. If it talks about a different action or if it talks about a different goal, then it's definitely not relevant to the plan that you're given. Now, B does mention loan duration. Loan duration is technically not the same thing as the life of the loan. That's a more advanced thing in finance, but whatever. For now, let's just say this is the same thing. But even then, it talks about increasing the interest rate. Yeah, and increasing the interest rate is the first plan that they've already ruled out. Why E is better than D. Okay, so D tells us what they want to do. So choice D talks about what they want to do. But knowing what someone wants to do is not good enough to tell you whether they'll actually be able to do it or not. And it definitely doesn't tell you if it's the right way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, so I actually think that if you practice this type of question, you actually can kind of train yourself that every time you see a plan question, you just look for these two things. You look for the action, you look for the goal. And if the answer choice doesn't talk about those two things, or if it talks about, actually it's kind of more the other way around. If it talks about a different action or if it talks about a different goal, it's definitely wrong. If it does talk about those things, it may be right or it may be wrong. Then it gets more into what it says. But if it talks about a different plan or a different goal, for sure, it's wrong.